When the door slammed shut behind my son, it wasn't just a door that closed. It was the sound of everything I had built folding into silence. You might be listening from a couch, a car, a late-night kitchen, wherever you are. If you ever loved and were betrayed, this is for you. My name is Elise Harper. I was 38 when my son shut that door. By the time the night was over, my bank accounts were frozen, my name stripped from my office, and a cold, neat plan had been set in motion to erase me from the life I had raised. If you stay with me, I'll tell you how a quiet woman, an invisible architect of other people's success, turned the silence they expected into a flame they could not put out. Welcome to Whispers of Grandma Joy, where old souls tell hard truths and ordinary people become the quiet heroes of their own lives. If you like justice wrapped in tenderness, if you believe in dignity after loss, hit like and subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. Your comment keeps this story breathing. The rain had that particular, timid sound, the kind that pats the roof and whispers secrets into gutters. It was late when I pulled into the drive of the house I'd called home for 15 years. The porch light painted the gravel a soft gold. I thought of small comforts, a cup of tea, the familiar creak of the stairs, my son's laugh echoing from upstairs. When I opened the front door, a silence met me like a traveler at the border, polite, distant, and impossibly empty. "Elise?" I called, dropping my keys into the wooden bowl by the hall. No answer. The living room light glowed. The TV was on a muted glow of late-night talk shows, but there was no life in the cushions, no blanket dragged over a sleeping lap, only the hush of a house that had learned to behave. I heard the bedroom door close softly. "Mom, sit down," my son Jacob said, as if he'd rehearsed the words. There was a steel I didn't like in his voice. He wasn't standing there to greet me. He was standing to mark a new line in the air between us. "Jacob, what is?" My voice thinned. I stepped toward the bedroom and the door clicked with a sound that still lives under my ribs. He shut it. Not a slow close, not a confused, accidental brush. He shut it with the deliberate calm of someone who believed a barrier could rearrange a life. I stood in the hall, breath shallow, coat half-slipped from my arm. The house had never felt smaller. The next morning there were 100 things I did not understand. 100 small betrayals braided into one knot. Phone calls I could not answer because my phone said, "Contact your administrator." My email logged me out. The office door had a padlock I did not recognize. When I called, the number that answered belonged to a woman I had once tutored through college, now HR at Sterling Ridge, and her voice was flat. "Miss Harper, I'm sorry. The board has accepted your resignation effective immediately." Resignation? The word felt like a bounty hunter dragging my name from the porch. I tried to laugh, but it tasted like rust. "Someone filed the papers. You signed them electronically." "You forged?" I choked. "It's a legal signature," she said. "With your ID. We're following procedure." They had taken more than keys. They had taken the idea that the life I had shaped would honor me in return. In one efficient sweep, they tried to remove me from the story I had written with long nights and quiet competence. I remember sitting on the edge of our old couch, hands folded, trying to count the breaths between my heartbeats. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something metallic, paperwork, signatures, and the frost of premeditation. When Jacob finally opened the door again that evening, he held a folder. The kind of folder lawyers like to wrap delicate things in. "Mom," he said quietly. There was a strain in that word. It was not exactly pity. It was not exactly cruelty. It was something worse. Certainty. "You need to take this," he said, handing me the paper like it was a simple errand. I unfolded it with slow fingers. It felt like peeling paint. The words blurred and then sharpened into a naked strip of truth. Transfer of executors, power of attorney, immediate reassignment of assets. "Why?" I began. Jacob glanced at the signature line at his father's signature that used to be, for me, a familiar curve. He touched his lips as if he were tasting instructions. "Mom," he said, voice small, "we need stability. Dad says this is best for the family." My husband's name sat at the bottom of the page like a prophecy. Marcus, my partner of 20 years, had signed as if the house and the company were merely ledger entries. He had upgraded our marriage to a contract he could alter. I told? I asked. Jacob looked away. "You always said you didn't want to fight, Mom." I felt an old, worn shame settle. Growing used to swallowing had become part of the air I breathed. I remembered a younger version of myself who stapled invoices at midnight, who rehearsed board presentations aloud in the kitchen, who gave her voice to the meeting and her face to the cameras, while other people learned her work from the credits at the bottom of pages. I had not expected that the muscle I had built, patience, would one day be used as a tool to quiet me for good. "Mom, please," Jacob pleaded. "Just go stay with Aunt Claire for now. Just—" His voice broke on for now. He closed the door softly, but this time it was not the bedroom door. It was the door to the life I had assumed I'd always have. It was a lock built from paper and signatures and the small compliances of a family that had learned to trade loyalty for convenience. I gathered my things. I sat in the dim light as if waiting for a thunderclap that never came. The city buzzed beyond our windows, indifferent. I walked to the kitchen, opened the cabinet for a cup, and found my favorite mug missing. A small, petty thing, except the missing mug folded into the same story. One by one, I was being erased from ordinary places. The night I left, the garden lights were on, and our magnolia tree threw long, forgiving shadows across the lawn. I paused and placed my palm against the trunk. "Remember me," I whispered, to the tree, to myself, to a home that had been built piece by careful piece. I drove to my sister's, then Aunt Claire's house, because it is easier to be shuffled than to argue. The radio whispered comfort and I turned it up. It was a small rebellion, choosing background noise instead of a confrontation. When I lay awake that night, on a borrowed couch, counting the size between street lamps, I tried to remember the first time the shape of my life started to crack. Was it when I deferred to Marcus at a press conference and he got the headline? Was it when my mother praised Bryn's effortless charm while missing my graduation? The cracks had always been there, but they were hairline ones you could ignore if you never looked close. I must have stopped looking close. But the door Jacob slammed closure made me look. It made me see the work of steady erasures that had been happening for years, quiet transfers, small excuses, the slow replacement of me with someone more convenient. I had to decide, would I be someone who folded quietly into the edges, or someone who learned to read the plans drawn in secret? I closed my eyes. The decision felt oddly like waking. Morning light always used to feel gentle in my house. But the morning after Jacob shut the door on me, the light felt foreign, like I was waking inside someone else's life. "You look pale, Elise," she whispered. "You're scaring me." I tried to smile, but it felt like folding paper that had been soaked in rain. "I'm fine," I lied. But the truth was harder than anything I could say aloud. The home I had built, the life I had tended, like a garden, no longer had a place for me, and something in me sensed it had been happening long before last night. Claire reached over, touching my hand. "What exactly did Jacob say?" I stared at the rising steam. "He didn't say much, just that I needed to leave. That Dad knows what he's doing." Claire froze. "Elise, that's not normal. Jacob worships you." "He used to," I whispered. The words stung, almost childish in their ache. I walked to the window, watching a bird hop across the fence. He looked at me like I was the problem, like I had ruined something. I swallowed. That look wasn't his. It was Marcus's. Claire sighed, rubbing her forehead. "You think Marcus put him up to it?" I didn't answer, because deep down, beneath the shock and humiliation, I felt a new, darker truth blooming. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't random. This wasn't a moment of teenage frustration. This was a plan. A long, careful, suffocating plan. To push me out of the position I had built in both the home and the company. I went back to my house later that afternoon, not inside, just outside, standing across the street like a stranger studying a crime scene. The curtains were drawn tight. The car was gone. My garden, the garden I pruned with my own hands, looked untouched, unbothered, unaware, but I felt it in my bones. Something inside that house had shifted long before the door shut. Small things came back to me. The way Marcus had started locking his office door at home. The way Jacob kept glancing at his phone when I asked simple questions. The way conversations fell silent when I entered a room. I rewound memories like old tapes. Jacob asking for my signature on school forms. Papers I barely glanced at because I trusted him. Marcus suggesting I take a long break after my father died. My sister Bryn appearing more often in our home, whispering with Marcus in the kitchen when they thought I was upstairs. Individually, none of these things were alarming. Together, Together, they formed a pattern. And patterns are rarely accidents. I pressed a hand over my chest. The air felt thinner. A woman walking her dog passed me and smiled politely, unaware that just a few feet away, a life was unraveling quietly. I whispered into the wind, as if my house could hear me. "Why did you let them do this to me?" Of course, the house did not answer. But something inside me shifted, a subtle tightening, a quiet awakening. I turned and walked away. Not because I wanted to, but because I no longer belonged there. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. "You should have seen this coming." My fingers trembled. My throat went dry. Someone was watching me. Someone who wasn't Marcus. Someone who wasn't Jacob. Someone who knew. Someone who wanted me to know they knew. I stared at the message for a long time before finally locking my phone, not out of fear, but because I suddenly understood something chilling. Whatever was happening to me, it had started long before the door closed, and the echoes of it were everywhere, in my home, in my family, in the very foundation of the life I had built. Echoes don't break things on their own. They come from an impact. And I was finally ready to trace the sound, back to where the real blow had been struck. I drove home again that evening, not to go inside. I knew I wasn't welcome there, but to understand, to catch whatever truth was slipping through the cracks. The sky had fallen into a bruised shade of purple when I parked down the street. From afar, my house glowed warm, the kind of light families gather under, the kind of light a mother should be part of. I stepped out slowly, pulling my coat tighter around me. A gust of wind carried the faint scent of rosemary, the herbs I planted myself, kneeling in the soil while Jacob handed me tools with those tiny fingers. My throat tightened. I approached quietly, careful not to step on the gravel that always betrayed footsteps. Through the dining room window, I saw it. Marcus, Jacob, Bryn. The three of them, sitting together, at my table. My table. 3 plates, 3 glasses, 3 sets of cutlery. Not 4. Never 4. The chair at the end, my chair had been pushed back slightly, angled away from the table, as if to erase any memory of me. No one was laughing. No one was speaking. It wasn't a normal dinner. It was a meeting. Bryn leaned in, whispering something to Marcus. Jacob stared down at his hands, twisting a napkin until it tore. Marcus looked stern, but not angry. Focused, calculated. I knew that expression. He used it during negotiations when he wanted something badly, but didn't want the other side to know. My heart crawled up my throat. I moved closer. Their voices were muffled, but bits of words leaked through the crack in the window frame. "She won't question it. Needs to be out of the way. Sign the papers first. Jacob, do you understand?" Jacob lifted his head, and for a moment, I saw it. Fear, not rebellion. Not anger, not disrespect. Fear. Bryn touched his hand gently, too gently. That familiar gesture from childhood, the one she used on me whenever she wanted me to give in to something that wasn't good for me. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "you're doing the right thing." Jacob's chin trembled. I don't want Mom to hate me." Marcus leaned closer, voice firm, controlled. "She won't hate you if she understands this is for the best." A knife drove through my chest. For the best? Whose best? Mine? Jacob's? Or theirs? Bryn took a sip of wine, eyes sharp beneath her warm smile. "Elise is fragile. She always has been. You know that, Jacob." My lips parted in disbelief. Fragile? I built that house. I built the business that fed this family. I survived losses they knew nothing about. And she, the sister who always wilted under the weight of her own mistakes, dared to call me fragile? I stepped back, stunned, as Marcus continued. "Sign everything over." The words hit me like a blow. The meeting, the secrecy, the fear in Jacob's eyes. It all clicked into place. This dinner wasn't a family moment. It was a strategy session. A plan. A plan involving my name, my assets, my life. Marcus placed a hand on Jacob's shoulder. "You're helping your father. This is what men do. They protect their families." Jacob swallowed hard. "What about Mom?" Bryn answered before Marcus could. "She'll adjust. As if I were furniture? As if moving me out of my own life was a minor inconvenience." I stumbled back, hand pressed against my mouth to smother a sound, a sob, a scream. I wasn't sure. My family, the people I fed, loved, fought for, were planning something that required me out of the picture. Not just temporarily, but permanently. I turned and walked toward my car, every step trembling. The house glowed warmly behind me, unaware that the woman who built it was breaking into pieces on the sidewalk. My phone buzzed again. Another message, from the same unknown number. "They're almost there. You need to move faster." I stood frozen, the wind biting my skin, my heart beating in sharp, painful jolts. Whoever was texting me knew what was happening inside that house. Whoever they weren't warning me out of kindness. They were warning me because a much bigger storm was coming. And for the first time since Jacob slammed the door on me, I felt true fear. Not of losing my family, but of what my family had become. The next morning, the sky was heavy with low gray clouds, the kind that made the world feel like it was holding its breath. I stood outside my own office building, staring up at the glass facade that once reflected my dreams. Before everything twisted, before trust broke like cheap porcelain, the company Elise Tech had been my second child, born from my sleepless nights, grown with my sacrifices, and fed by every ounce of ambition I once possessed. But today, I sensed something else growing inside it, a shadow, a lie, a gathering storm. When I stepped inside, the receptionist who had greeted me with a warm smile for 8 years stiffened. "Elise, good morning," she said too quickly, too rehearsed. Her eyes flicked downward, avoiding mine. I noticed. Everyone noticed. But no one spoke. As I walked through the hallway, employees lowered their voices, some even turning away as if I were a stranger wandering into the wrong building. My stomach tightened. Something had shifted here, too, and I was the last person to know. When I reached the executive wing, I found the door to the conference room closed. A printed sign taped outside read, "Board session, do not enter." I froze. A board meeting? Without me? That wasn't just unusual. It was impossible. I was the founder, the majority shareholder, the woman who built the brand from nothing but grit and borrowed faith. I placed my hand on the door handle. It didn't budge. Locked. From the inside. Through the frosted glass, I saw shadows. Figures sitting around the long table. Movement. Papers being exchanged. Heads nodding. And there, at the head of the table, Marcus, my husband. In my chair. His posture confident, relaxed, comfortable, as if the seat had always belonged to him. Beside him sat Bryn, my sister, the sister who once cried in my arms after every mistake she made, now whispering into my husband's ear, her face carrying the smug calm of someone who knew. The game had already been won behind closed doors. My throat tightened as I pressed closer to the glass. Jacob was there too, not sitting, standing behind Marcus, head lowered, his shoulders trembling slightly. He looked like a child caught in the doorway of a crime. I lifted my hand to knock. Just as I did, a voice from inside sliced through the muffled air. "Marcus, she's too emotional to lead. This company needs stability." Then Bryn's voice followed, soft, persuasive, poisonous. "Elise has been under stress for months. People are starting to talk. Investors are worried." Another voice, a board member. "Are we sure she'll sign the transition papers?" The words echoed inside me like a bell tolling over a grave. My grave. Marcus exhaled, confident, rehearsed. "She will. I've handled it." Handled me. As if I were a problem. A task. A barrier. Not a wife. Not a partner. Not the founder of everything they were sitting in. Rage trembled inside my chest. Not loud. But deep. Steady. Electric. I pushed the door harder. It rattled. All heads turned toward the sound. Marcus's expression flickered. Not guilt, not fear, but annoyance. He stood, smoothing his suit. "I'll handle this," he said, and the room fell silent. He opened the door only far enough to slip outside, closing it behind him with a soft click, like sealing a vault. "Elise," he said calmly, "you weren't supposed to be here." "I'm the founder," I replied, my voice barely holding together. "There is no meeting without me." Marcus gave a gentle, patronizing smile. "Elise, you need rest. You've been overwhelmed. Let us take care of things for a while." Let us. Us. The word hit me harder than any accusation. I glanced at the closed door behind him. "You're meeting with the board without me. You're sitting in my chair." Marcus didn't deny it. Instead, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. If you keep resisting, you'll only embarrass yourself. I stared at him, unable to form words. The company, he added, needs someone stable, someone predictable. My heart sank. This wasn't concern. This wasn't love. This was a takeover. He touched my arm lightly, a gesture meant to look supportive, but it felt like a clamp. Elise, go home, he said softly. We'll handle the rest. The rest. My company, my life's work, my identity. He turned back to the door, pausing only once before re-entering. Oh, and please stop showing up unannounced. It disrupts things. Then he slipped inside. The door locked again. And for the second time in 2 days, a door closed in my face. It was my husband, shutting me out of my own legacy. I stood there, hollow, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me like insects. Then my phone vibrated. A text from the same unknown number. They're voting without you. Level 2 starts now. Level 2? My breath caught. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a coordinated operation. And whoever was texting me, they knew exactly what was coming next. And they knew I didn't. I waited in the hallway long after the boardroom door closed, trying to gather the shards of myself into something that resembled a person. When the meeting finally ended, people filtered out quietly, their eyes sliding past me like I was a ghost they didn't want to acknowledge. Whispers trailed behind them. She doesn't know yet? They're removing her. Poor woman! My chest tightened until breathing felt like swallowing broken glass. Then Jacob stepped out. My son. My boy. The child whose first steps I cheered for, whose nightmares I soothed, whose scraped knees I kissed. He froze when he saw me. Jacob, I whispered. But instead of running to me, instead of relief, I watched conflict battle across his face. Guilt, fear, confusion, and something colder, something not his own. Marcus emerged behind him. Jacob, he said gently, go ahead. But Jacob didn't move. His eyes were fixed on me wide, glassy, trembling. I stepped forward. Sweetheart, talk to me. Please. He swallowed hard. Mom, Dad says. He says it's better if you step back. I felt the world tilt. What? Jacob, why would you think that? He looked down, voice cracking. Because you're making things difficult. The air left my lungs. Difficult? Jacob squeezed his eyes shut, as if the words hurt him too. You're the reason everything is falling apart. My heart stopped. He opened his eyes again, and the sentence that left his mouth split something inside me, clean in half. Mom, you're the problem. For a moment, I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel shock. I felt nothing. As if my soul had stepped out of my body and was watching from a distance. Jacob trembled, and I knew, with a mother's terrible clarity, that Marcus had planted those words, shaped them, fed them, rehearsed them, but hearing them come from my son still made the floor disappear beneath me. I reached for him. Jacob, sweetheart, that's not true. It's... Marcus stepped in, placing a hand on Jacob's shoulder. Elise, he said softly, you're upsetting him. I stared at Marcus. At the calm, the calculation, the control. This wasn't a crisis to him. It was choreography. Their plan was in motion. Let's go home, Jacob, Marcus said. Jacob nodded, weakly. Dad, can we just go? He didn't even look at me when he said it. They walked away together. Marcus didn't glance back. Jacob didn't either. And as their silhouettes grew smaller down the corridor, one truth carved itself into me. Doors weren't just closing. They were being closed on purpose. I sat alone in the parking lot long after sunset, the steering wheel cold beneath my hands. Jacob's sentence echoed over and over. Mom, you're the problem. No, those weren't his words. They belonged to someone else. Someone who had been whispering in his ear. I closed my eyes, and the memories came uninvited. Marcus, telling me I was overreacting whenever I questioned his late nights. Marcus, insisting Jacob needed more structure, meaning less of me. Marcus, locking doors in our home, taking private calls, smiling subtly whenever Bryn just happened to drop by. And Bryn, who had always envied my life, who crumbled under pressure, but somehow rose whenever I stumbled. Bryn, who once said, "Some women aren't meant to lead, it breaks them." Back then I thought she meant herself. Now I wasn't so sure. I drove home, or rather, to the house that no longer felt like mine, hoping, foolishly, that Jacob would open the door, apologize, tell me he didn't mean it. But when I arrived, the front lights were off, the curtains drawn, the gate locked. A shadow moved behind the curtain. Jacob. He froze when he saw me. I lifted a hand, mouthing, "Please, just talk to me." He hesitated. Then slowly, deliberately, he pulled the curtain closed. Tears blurred my vision as I stumbled back. That's when my phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. He didn't choose those words. Neither did Marcus. Ask yourself who benefits most from removing you. My hands shook. Who benefits most? Marcus? Bryn? Or both? A wave of nausea rolled through me as understanding sank deeper. Whatever was happening wasn't about emotions, or family tension, or misunderstandings. This was about power, assets, control. And someone had been patient, years patient, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The funeral, my grief, my distraction, my trust. All of it had made me vulnerable, and they had used it. Not impulsively, not suddenly, strategically, calculatingly, cruelly. I looked up at the window. Jacob was gone. But another figure moved behind him, a silhouette with long hair. Bryn, in my home, with my husband, influencing my son, as she had been, for far longer than I realized. My phone buzzed again. They've already taken the first stage. Stage 2 is the house. My heart stopped. They were coming for everything, and if I didn't fight back now, I'd lose not just my company, but my entire life. The next day began with a knock at my door. Claire's apartment, the place I was being forced to call home. I opened it to find a man in a suit holding a stack of papers. "Elise Hart?" he asked politely. "Yes? I'm here to deliver a notice of temporary property transition." My blood went cold. "Property transition?" He handed me the documents. I skimmed them quickly, my vision blurring with each line. Marcus had filed a petition to temporarily transfer ownership of the house to him, exclusively, for the safety of the family environment. Safety? I hadn't raised a hand against anyone in my life. "This must be a mistake," I whispered. The man shook his head. "Your husband provided statements from your sister and son. They expressed concern about your emotional instability." I felt the world collapse inward. "Instability?" My voice cracked. "Yes, ma'am. Under those claims, you are legally restricted from entering the property." I staggered back. "You mean I'm banned from my own home?" The man nodded. "It's temporary," he said gently. "But until the court reviews the statements, you must stay away." I felt the papers shake in my hands. Jacob signed this. My son. Marcus orchestrated it. And Bryn supplied the poison that made it convincing. After the man left, I sank to the floor. Not crying. Not screaming. Just empty. Later that afternoon, I tried logging into my business accounts. Access denied. I tried my email. Password changed. My company card. Declined. I tried calling Jacob. Straight to voicemail. I tried calling Marcus. Blocked. Bryn. Blocked. They hadn't just removed me. They had erased me. Piece by piece. Role by role. Identity by identity. My phone buzzed once more. A message. From the same unknown number. "They think you'll break. Don't. Stage 3 is coming. And that's where you win." Win? How could anyone win when their own family was tearing them out of their life? But as I sat there, surrounded by papers that declared I no longer belonged to anything I built, something inside me hardened. Not anger, not revenge. Something older, stronger. A mother's instinct, a survivor's instinct. An instinct that whispered, if they want to erase me, they will have to try harder. Because I was not done. Not yet. Claire had offered me her guest room, but that night, sleep felt like a luxury reserved for people who still belonged somewhere. I lay on the floor beside the couch, wrapped in a thin blanket, staring at the shadows on the ceiling. My home was gone. My company was gone. My family, the very people I built my world around, had turned me into a threat. I replayed Jacob's voice, the tremble, the hesitation before the blade. "Mom, you're the problem." That sentence carved deeper with every repetition. But beneath the heartbreak, a new sensation pulsed low in my chest. Not fear, not grief, determination. Someone had orchestrated this. Someone had woven lies into the foundations of my family. Someone had poisoned Jacob's heart and placed words in his mouth that didn't belong to him. I sat up slowly, running my hands over my face. "How long has this been happening?" I whispered to no one. Claire stirred on the couch. "Elise, you okay?" I nodded. "I just need air." I slipped outside. The night wind was cold, but I welcomed it. It reminded me I was still alive. I walked down the street barefoot, listening to the distant hum of traffic, trying to untangle the knots in my mind. Every betrayal in the present begins with a wound in the past. And mine had roots that stretched back far before Marcus, far before Jacob, back to a childhood shaped by unequal love, back to a sister who learned early how to break me quietly. The scent of night jasmine brought back memories I had spent a lifetime burying. I closed my eyes, and suddenly I was 10 again, standing barefoot in the hallway of our childhood home. Bryn was crying on the living room floor, her doll broken, her hands shaking. My mother stormed in, eyes blazing. "Elise, what did you do to your sister?" I had been in my room the entire time. "Mom, I didn't—" "Stop lying," she snapped. "She says you took it from her." Bryn looked at me, with wide, trembling eyes that I would later learn were not fear, but calculation. I wasn't punished for hurting her. I was punished for existing. That day, I learned a painful truth. Some people wear innocence like a weapon. As the years passed, that weapon sharpened. Every time something went wrong, Bryn cried, Bryn collapsed, Bryn begged, and I took the blame. The golden child and the scapegoat. Roles carved in stone. I worked harder. I excelled in school. I lifted myself out of that house, with nothing but grit and ambition. Bryn stayed behind, always struggling, always failing, always expecting help. When I succeeded, she resented me. When I loved, she envied me. When I married Marcus, she smiled at the wedding, but her eyes were knives. I forced myself to forget that past. I forced myself to believe that we could both have happiness. But people who grow up in the shadow of favoritism don't forget power dynamics. They recreate them. I opened my eyes slowly. Bryn wasn't just jealous. She wasn't just insecure. She had been preparing her entire life to prove she deserved what I had. And now, she had finally found an ally, willing to help her take it. The next morning, Claire drove me to the bank so I could at least access my own savings. But when I approached the teller and handed over my ID, her expression shifted. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hart. Your accounts are temporarily frozen." Frozen. Every account. Every dollar. "Why?" I whispered, though part of me already knew. "There was a legal request from your husband," the teller said carefully. "We can't override it." My fingers tightened around the counter. Marcus was cutting off every escape route, and he wasn't doing it alone. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "They've been planning this for a year. Check the old executive files. Folder name, White Wing. White Wing, a name I had never seen." I turned to Claire, my voice shaking but steady. "I need to go to the office. Elise, I don't care. I need answers." She drove me back to Elise Tech, and I walked through the doors with a clarity I hadn't felt in days. The receptionist began to panic. "Elise, you're not authorized to—" I raised a hand. She fell silent. Some people forget who built the ground they stand on. I walked straight to my old office. The door was locked. Of course it was. But I knew the override code. I designed the security system myself. The lock clicked open. Inside, the desk had been cleared. My photos gone. My books removed. Erased. But they forgot one thing. I always kept a backup drive hidden inside a false panel of the desk. I opened it. The drive was still there. I plugged it into the computer. A folder appeared. White Wing. My breath caught. Inside the folder were documents, financial transfers, share redistribution plans, board manipulation strategies, scripts for Jacob to say to me, drafts of the petition to push me out of my home, all dated, all planned, all signed by two people, Marcus Hart and Bryn Alcott, my husband and my sister, together, conspiring for over a year to remove me from my own life. I scrolled further, and then my hand flew to my mouth. There were transcripts, videos, emails. Not just planning the takeover, but discussions about dividing the assets afterward. Bryn wrote, "Once she's gone, we split everything 50 over 50. Jacob will follow whatever Marcus says. He idolizes his father." Marcus replied, "We'll make Elise believe it's her fault. That way it won't come back on us legally." My knees weakened. They didn't just want my company. They wanted my life, my son, my home, my identity, my entire existence, rewritten so they could take everything. I closed the drive slowly, my hands trembling but my mind clear. This wasn't betrayal. This was a coup. And now, I had the proof. I left the office without looking back. Every step felt heavier, but every breath felt cleaner, as if the truth itself was oxygen. Claire was waiting in the car. "Elise, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." I sank into the seat. "I didn't see a ghost," I whispered. "I found one." I pulled out the flash drive, holding it like a blade. "This is everything. Their plans, their messages, their signatures. They've been orchestrating my downfall for a year." Claire's expression hardened. "Elise, you need a lawyer. A good one." "I need more than a lawyer," I said. "I need leverage, because Marcus was many things, but stupid wasn't one of them. And Bryn. Bryn had always known how to slip through cracks without getting her hands dirty. To beat people like them, truth wasn't enough. I needed precision, strategy, a counterattack that shattered their illusion of power. I opened my laptop again, pulling up one more thing they didn't know existed: the ghost file, a hidden administrative path I had built into Elise Tech's server years ago, a failsafe for emergencies. No one else knew the access string. Not the engineers, not Marcus, not even the board. Just me. I typed it in. The screen flashed. Access granted root administrator, and suddenly, every document, every transaction, every message sent through the company network over the last decade lay open before me, including Marcus's private account that he believed was untraceable. I dove in. Transfers to shell companies, payments signed with forged versions of my digital signature, contracts altered after I had already approved them, even voice memos. Marcus complaining to Bryn, "Elise is too smart. We have to make her look unstable. It's the only way people will believe she's stepping down voluntarily." Another file played automatically. Jacob's voice. My heart dropped. He was practicing. "Mom, I think you need help." Pause. Then again, trying to soften the tone, trying to sound concerned. My own son had rehearsed the line. That broke me. Not because he wanted to, but because Marcus had fed him a script, like giving lines to a child actor. I covered my mouth, forcing myself not to sob. Claire touched my arm. "Elise, maybe stop. You've seen enough." "No," I whispered. "I'm not stopping until I see everything." Because knowing the full truth was the only way to reclaim my life. And then, near the bottom of the directory, a locked file, encrypted, hidden deep in Marcus's personal drive. Alcott Plan Final, PDF. Alcott. Bryn's last name. My pulse quickened. I bypassed the encryption. The file opened. My blood ran cold. The document wasn't about me. It was about Jacob. A full psychological profile. Old-school evaluations. Tracking notes from when he was a teenager. Marcus had compiled everything. Grades, behavior patterns, emotional triggers. All annotated in red. Lines jumped out at me. Jacob responds strongly to validation. Feels inferior next to Elise's discipline. Position him where praise equals compliance. And beneath it, a plan. Phase 1. Create emotional distance from Elise. Phase 2. Position Marcus as the savior figure. Phase 3. Shift loyalty fully to Marcus. Phase 4. Post-transition. Jacob to inherit Elise Tech under Marcus's control. They had groomed my son, weaponized him, turned him into a pawn in a game he didn't even understand. I shook violently. He used our son," I whispered. "He used him like a tool." And then I saw the final page. A script, meant for Marcus to read to Jacob. "Your mother wants to control everything. She doesn't trust you. She doesn't believe in you. But I do. You're the future. You're the rightful heir. All you need to do is help me protect the company from her." Claire gasped. "Oh my God. He broke my son," I whispered. He broke him to break me. My chest ached so hard, I thought something inside me might rupture. But beneath the agony, a fire ignited. No mother can remain broken forever when her child is thrown into danger. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about rescue. Jacob wasn't the villain. He was collateral damage. And I would not abandon him to Marcus's manipulation. I looked at Claire. It's time. For what? For the truth to come out. The board meeting was in 2 days. The one where Marcus planned to announce my voluntary resignation. I would be there. But not as a victim, begging to be heard. As the architect of their collapse. Claire leaned forward. How are you going to do it? I took a long breath. Marcus wants a spectacle, I said. He wants an audience. He wants everyone to witness my downfall. I lifted the flash drive, its metal surface reflecting the sunlight. So I'm going to give him exactly that. At the meeting, I would show every file, every message, every forged signature, every piece of manipulation, every lie. I would tear the mask off in front of the people he valued most. His investors, his board, his colleagues, his carefully curated world. But most importantly, Jacob, because he needed to see the truth with his own eyes. Not from my lips, not from Marcus's, not twisted, filtered, softened, raw, undeniable, irrefutable. The truth that would shatter the illusion his father had built around him, like a cage. I pressed the USB drive into my palm until it hurt. This ends at the board meeting, I whispered. No, Claire said softly. This begins at the board meeting. And she was right. I wasn't ending a war. I was starting a new life. One where the truth would finally be my ally. One where I would reclaim not just my company, but my son, my identity, my power. The unmasking was coming. And none of them, not Marcus, not Bryn, not even Jacob, were ready for the storm I was about to unleash. The day of the board meeting arrived cold and sharp, as if the air itself sensed a reckoning. I dressed carefully, not in something soft, not in something apologetic, but in a tailored charcoal suit, the kind a woman wears when she is ready to bury an empire and build a new one from the ashes. Claire drove me to the building. Elise, she murmured, as we stopped outside. You know there's no going back after this, right? There's nothing to go back to, I replied. The lobby was full. Investors, senior managers, board members, even journalists hovering nearby. Marcus had leaked the meeting. He wanted an audience. Perfect. So did I. When I stepped inside the room, the murmurs rose like wind through glass. That's Elise. Didn't they say she stepped down? She looks determined. Marcus stood at the head of the table, smiling like a king, awaiting applause. Bryn sat beside him, dressed in white, as if she somehow deserved purity. Jacob was there too, his eyes flicking to me before he quickly looked away, conflicted, tense, wounded, still under the spell of Marcus's manipulation. Marcus cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Today is a historic moment. He didn't finish. I stepped forward and placed my flash drive. On the glossy conference table, the sound echoed like a gunshot. Before you continue, I said, I'd like to correct the narrative. Marcus froze. Elise, he hissed under his breath. Don't make a scene. I smiled. We're well past scenes, Marcus. I plugged the flash drive into the main display. The screen lit up. File after file appeared. Contracts, transfers, forged signatures, secret messages, the Alcott plan, psychological manipulation schemes, financial crimes. Gasps rippled around the room. Bryn's face drained of blood. Marcus's confident facade snapped like brittle glass. What is this? A board member demanded. The truth, I answered. The truth you were never meant to see. Marcus stepped forward, voice cracking. Elise, this is illegal. No, I cut him off sharply. What you did is illegal. What I'm doing is justice. I clicked a button. A recording played. Marcus's voice. Elise is too smart. We have to make her look unstable. Another recording. Use Jacob. He trusts easily. Position him on my side. Jacob's head jerked up. What? He whispered. Dad? Then came the final blow. The video Marcus never knew I had copied. Him and Bryn, discussing how to force me out of the company and seize all my assets. Bryn whimpered. Marcus, You said she'd never find this. Marcus lunged toward the technician. Turn it off, turn it off. Security blocked him. The boardroom erupted into chaos. Elise, is this real? Were you forging documents, Marcus? This is fraud, serious federal fraud. Marcus swallowed hard. Elise. Sweetheart, we can fix this. Don't do this. Think of Jacob. I looked at my son. Jacob's eyes were wide, trembling, breaking. Mom, he whispered, is all of this true? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The files spoke for me. He looked at Marcus, really looked at him, and the truth hit him like a punch. Jacob stood up slowly. You used me. Marcus froze. No, son, You used me, Jacob repeated, voice shaking with rage. You turned me against my own mother. You manipulated me. You lied to me, Jacob. Don't say my name. Tears streamed down his face. I trusted you. I defended you. I hurt Mom because of you. Marcus panicked. Jacob, please. Jacob shoved him back. Stay away from me. For the first time in decades, the great Marcus Abrams looked small, pathetic. Then the doors opened. 2 federal agents stepped inside. Marcus Abrams, the lead agent announced. You are under arrest for wire fraud, corporate embezzlement, identity manipulation, and falsifying federal documents. Bryn screamed. No, Marcus, do something. But Marcus couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't save himself. As the agents cuffed him, he looked at me with pure hatred. You ruined me, he spat. I stepped closer. No, Marcus, you ruined yourself. I simply turned on the lights. Bryn tried to run. Security stopped her. This isn't fair, she cried. You can't punish me, Marcus told me. I faced her calmly. You destroyed your own life, Bryn, and you almost destroyed my son. Her sobs echoed through the room as they dragged her away. Silence fell, a heavy, stunned silence. Jacob stood alone, his world shattered, his shoulders shaking, and after a long moment, Mom, he whispered, not defensively, not angrily, not with walls. Just, Mom. I opened my arms. He crashed into me, like a child starving for warmth. I'm sorry, he cried. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't see. I'm so sorry, Mom. I held him tightly. It's okay, I whispered. It's over now. You're safe. But this wasn't the end. This was the beginning of everything that would come next. After the boardroom imploded into chaos, and Marcus was dragged away in handcuffs, the world outside felt strangely quiet. Jacob and I walked out of the building together, but only one of us could breathe normally. His steps were shaky. His eyes refused to lift from the floor. His shoulders were curled inward, as if he were trying to fold himself out of existence. When we reached the car, he stopped. His voice broke. Mom, I don't deserve to get in. I turned toward him slowly. Jacob. No. He shook his head violently, tears already spilling over. I lied to you. I pushed you away. I said horrible things. I believed everything he told me. I thought you were the problem. I thought you were controlling me. I thought. His voice strangled mid-sentence. I thought Dad loved me. The last line came out as a whisper that cracked like thin glass. He sank onto the curb, burying his face in his hands. I sat beside him, not touching him yet, letting the silence soften. Just enough for him to breathe again. He exhaled shakily. Mom, how do I fix this? The rawness in his voice pulled at every maternal instinct I had left. But I also knew something important. He couldn't be saved for this moment. He needed to walk through it, fully. So I asked quietly, Jacob, do you know why this hurts so much? He wiped his eyes. Because I'm a terrible son. No. I shook my head gently. Because you finally saw who he really was. Jacob flinched. I thought, if I supported him, if I did everything he asked, if I proved myself, maybe he'd finally see me. This time, I did reach for him. I covered his hand with mine. Your father didn't love you because he doesn't know how to love anyone who doesn't serve him. Not me. Not you. Not even himself. Jacob swallowed hard. Then why did I choose him over you? Because he made it easy, I said softly. He fed you praise. He fed you promises. And I fed you truth. Truth doesn't taste sweet, Jacob. But it keeps you alive. He cried again. Not the panicked tears of the boardroom, but the quiet, grieving tears of someone mourning the father he wished he had. After a while, he whispered, "Mom, do you hate me?" The question hit me deeper than any betrayal. I turned fully toward him. "Jacob, look at me." He hesitated, then lifted his red, swollen eyes. "I have never hated you, not even for a second. You were manipulated, and I should have protected you better. That is my failure, not yours." His face crumpled. "Mom," I continued, "you are not the man he wanted to shape. You are the man you choose to become." He nodded slowly, absorbing, processing, reshaping the wreckage inside him. Then he whispered, "I don't know who I am," without his voice in my head. "That's okay," I said. "You're young. You get to build yourself now, piece by piece. And for the first time, you get to do it without his shadow." He looked at me with a mixture of fear and hope. "Will you help me?" I squeezed his hand gently. "I will walk beside you. But I won't walk for you. This time, Jacob, you have to take the first step." He nodded. "What do I do first?" I stood. "Come home with me." He blinked. I can?" I smiled softly. "Yes, but not the way you think." "What does that mean?" "It means you come home, not as the boy who once slammed a door in my face, but as the young man who finally understands why it hurt." Jacob stood slowly, breath shaking, but his posture straighter than before. "Okay," he whispered. "I'm ready." But neither of us knew yet. Healing wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Because forgiveness is not free. It must be earned. And Jacob was about to learn that repairing a broken bond takes more than an apology. It requires transformation. The first night Jacob returned home felt nothing like a celebration. There were no warm dinners waiting, no forced jokes to ease the tension, no sentimental hugs meant to patch years of damage. There was only quiet. A quiet filled with the weight of everything unsaid, and the possibility of everything that could still be healed. Jacob stepped inside the doorway, slowly, looking around the living room, as if entering a museum of a life he once lived, but no longer recognized. "Everything looks smaller," he murmured. I nodded. "Pain does that. It shrinks even the biggest rooms." He set his bag down, hesitating. "Mom, do I still have a place here?" "Yes," I said, "but it won't be the same place." He swallowed. "Meaning?" "Meaning you're not a child anymore. And I'm not the mother who fixes everything behind you. If we're doing this, you and I rebuild from honesty, not from habit." Jacob nodded slowly. "I want that, even if I don't know how yet." "That," I said softly, "is the best place to start." Over the next few weeks, Jacob began doing something I had never once seen him do before. He listened. He listened when I talked about boundaries. He listened when I told him I wouldn't be funding his impulsive spending anymore. He listened when I explained that rebuilding trust requires consistency, not grand gestures. One evening, he stood in the kitchen doorway and asked, "Mom, do you want tea?" Jacob had never offered to make me anything in his entire life. It was small, almost laughably small. But sometimes, healing begins with the tiniest shift in gravity. When he handed me the mug, his hands were still trembling slightly. "I'm trying," he whispered. "I know," I said, "and trying matters." As for me, my life transformed faster than I expected. The board reinstated me immediately. Investors, once skeptical, now lined up to praise my resilience. My inbox filled with opportunities, from companies who respected what I'd endured and admired how fiercely I had fought. But I didn't return to Elise Tech. I didn't want the ghost of Marcus lingering in every corner. Instead, I founded a new firm, Phoenix Meridian Group, named after the bird that rises and the line that splits night from morning. Claire became my COO. We hired a small, brilliant team. We rebuilt with intention, not ambition. For the first time in years, I was working for myself, not for a man, not for a marriage, not for a family that demanded more than it gave. And every day, I felt my lungs expand a little more. Marcus was denied bail and faced multiple felony charges. Even his lawyers couldn't spin his crimes into anything less than catastrophic. Bryn took a plea deal and vanished from public life, her name now synonymous with deception. My mother, never reached out again. Her silence was both a wound and a relief. Sometimes healing means letting go of the hands that refuse to hold you gently. Jacob, meanwhile, took a job at a small local tech firm. Not glamorous, not high-paying, but honest. His supervisor told me later, he's quiet, but he works harder than anyone here. Hard work was new to him, but redemption demands sweat. One night, months later, he joined me for dinner. He looked healthier, calmer, more grounded. Between bites of pasta, he set his fork down and said, "Mom, I finally see what you were trying to teach me. Love isn't control, and support isn't manipulation. You gave me everything, and I thought Dad's praise made me special. But your love," he paused, voice trembling, "your love made me whole, and I broke that." I reached across the table, resting my hand over his. "Jacob, you didn't break our bond. You bent it, and bonds can bend, if both people are willing to reshape them." He exhaled shakily. "Are we good?" I smiled softly. "We're becoming good, and becoming is better than pretending." He wiped his eyes. "I'm going to make you proud." "You already are," I whispered. Phoenix Meridian thrived, not explosively, but steadily, ethically, brilliantly. Jacob completed therapy and started college again, on his own dime. He moved into a modest apartment with a roommate who taught him how to budget and cook and be accountable. One afternoon, as I stood in my new office overlooking the city, Jacob walked in holding a bouquet of sunflowers. "For you," he said. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," he smiled. "I just wanted to bring sunshine to the person who taught me how to walk through darkness." And for the first time, the first real time, I believed we had made it. Not back to what we were, but forward to who we were meant to become. Thank you for listening to my story. If there is one thing I hope you take with you, let it be this. Sometimes the people we love the most teach us the hardest lessons. Sometimes the door that closes on us is the same door that opens our rebirth. And sometimes the person we become after the fire is stronger than the one we were before it. If you've ever rebuilt your life after betrayal, loss, or heartbreak, you are a phoenix too, and you deserve to rise.